Well, hello. I wrote this blurb like 6 or 7 hours ago, I think. It's 2:30 almost where I'm at. And the title of it is Tough Question. What makes me happy? Last night, I was at the discussion group that I go to most Fridays. We were all asked, what makes you happy? I was third, and for me, it was a tough question. I responded, this year, nothing makes me happy, referring to the theft of my home on February 7th. When everyone had given their answer, I had a chance to add that my grandkids provide some joy for me. Then when I came home, my son wanted to talk with me, insisting that I not retreat to my room as I normally do. He had a young friend with him, but he focused on me, telling me how much he loves me and reflecting on the role I have played in his life. Among his friends and drinking buddies, he is seen as a guru, a man of wisdom. I don't think he ever told me that before. Anyway, hearing that made me happy. Yes, I still want to live to see the positive changes I have worked for all my life, actually to be made real. It did not happen as I expected in 2011 or 2012, and the long delay has been frustrating for me, to say the least. It was as if I was actually the first one last night, because the first two people gave like one-word answers. And so no sooner had they started going around the room, and it was my turn. I mean, it took 15 seconds maybe for the other two people to answer, and then I'm on the hot plate. And so it felt like I was the first one to give a more detailed answer instead of just sharing or friends or whatever, just a general answer. And other people gave a little bit more detail as well. And it was an overall pretty interesting discussion. But I must admit that the more interesting discussion of the evening was the one where my son insisted, in a nice way. I mean, he was not pushy as he has been a few other times. And it ended up being a nice conversation. I said, please at least let me go in and turn the computer on, which I can't went in and turn the computer on. And then I'm going to add this too. When I came back, my computer, when I went to open up my web page, it didn't open up with all the programs that were opened prior to shutting it down beforehand. That's the first time that happened. The settings it's supposed to open up all the pages that were open when I closed the program. It didn't do that this time. For whatever reason, it did not do it. And so that was a little bit frustrating. But the conversation with my son was quite interesting. I spent more time than I would have normally. Well, normally I don't spend any time talking to him when you had a friend there, and they were, I don't know. I didn't notice whether the friend had his bottle of beer with him or not. I am assuming that they each had a beer, but I can't honestly say that I was engaging his friend all that much. We did, he did enter the conversation a little bit, but it was mostly between my son and myself. And I was sort of surprised on a Friday night that he was even home. Normally on weekends, and sometimes during the week, he disappears and he's gone until sometimes as I've said before, when I'm ready to go to the gym. Of course, I don't go to the gym on weekends, and this is a long holiday weekend, so I'm going to have 3 nights in a row that I'm not going to be going to the gym. It's not open at night for the next 3 nights. So anyway, I really did appreciate things that my son shared about the role that I've played in his life. It sort of boosted me and enriched my viewpoint of him. I've seen him as I see drinking. You have to understand, I see drinking somebody that drinks regularly all the time, I see that as alcoholism, and I see it as an escape. I don't see that as somebody that's a guru and on any type of spiritual path. Although I do have friends that are, quote, spiritual friends who I know I've talked to some of them when they're drunk, and others have made comments that they're drunk when they make comments on my videos and stuff like that. So that's my lifestyle. Is I don't have any use for alcohol. I mean, it used to be I might have, a few drinks, usually 2 was the limit when I'd go to hear my son play or something like that. I've only been drunk less than a handful of times in my whole life. I remember my son wanted me to share this, so I guess I'll share it. I remember the first time I got drunk. When I went into the Army, when I was drafted, I had a girlfriend when I went over there, and when I was ready to come home on leave, I sort of got a Dear John letter, I've got another boyfriend now, please don't bother me. Thank you for everything, but bye. And I went out, I guess, I don't know if it was the very night, probably the very night when I got home on leave. I went out with one or two of my friends. I know one, I can think of one, but I can't think of the other person's name. So maybe it was just Warren. But in any case, I drank a 6-pack of Big Cat malt liquor. And my friend or friends tried to sober me up by giving me a cup of coffee. As far as I know, that's the only coffee I've ever drank in my entire life. I don't like the smell, taste of coffee ice cream, coffee itself, anything with coffee flavor in it, forget it. I don't like it. I've never liked it. And but they said I did, and I convinced them after having the cup of coffee that I was okay and I could drive. But I must not have been driving too well, because on the way back home, all of a sudden I had red lights flashing behind me. And I started speeding up to evade the police officer. And I entered from the town, it was in the next town over from where I grew up. And when I entered Midland Park, I guess I was going 70 miles an hour or something, but the road, Godwin Avenue, that's the name of the street, Godwin Avenue, and it's a street that I grew up on. It goes around a pretty sharp bend, and I went around there and my car almost flipped over, I was told. I was basically, it left and I was on 2 wheels, but it wasn't enough of a tip to actually go all the way over, which of course scared me, and the police backed off a little bit. But they set up a roadblock up in front of me, and when the police stopped my car, they pulled me out of the car, and my car was still in gear, and went forward and hit the police car. I wasn't even in the car. I collapsed. When they let go of me, I collapsed on the street. I mean, I was really wasted. And the coffee didn't do a thing to wake me up. And so, Tom, I shared that just for you because you said you wanted me to, but there's only been a few other times in my whole life that I was really drunk. And one of them was at a party that was at my house after I had my kids. And I was told the next day, I was with college students lived next door to me. There was a dorm line. There were actually several college students that lived in the little area that I lived in, that I had my kids in. And they said, we understand you're a prophet. I was, again, pretty drunk, and I was spouting off spiritual stuff. And my son does that all the time, but he does it drinking, and I was doing it drinking, obviously, that night. But anyway, I relate these stories, and it sort of makes me happy to reflect back on some of these things and know that I've survived this far, and maybe it's not all over for me yet. Anyway, thank you for listening, and appreciate those of you that continue to support me. Namaste.